Let's go to Paul in Henderson, Nevada. Paul, what's going on, brother?
What's happening, guys? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Let's make it a great weekend, man. Let's make it a great Super Bowl. Patriots.
Absolutely.
Watch out.
Well, obviously, I know who you guys got.
Patriots Nation, baby.
Yeah. Oh, my
yeah,
God.
buddy. I bet you guys are. You got to have a great weekend. You guys having a party planned or anything like that?
Yep.
We'll be watching that game. You know, it's interesting, just to throw it in, some people, I went to Villanova, and so I have so many Philadelphia fans, so this one's even bigger than usual. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Let's go.
Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
It
so
will.
Bitcoin, what do you guys think here? On my GDAX chart, we completed that huge ABC down. It hit it, if I have this measured out correctly, approximately at 7,800. We went a little bit lower to about 74. You guys think the bounce is on, or are we going to do an extension and this thing's toast?
My take, Paul, is that it's toast, you know, and the reason being is that, you know, you have the gap that it went after, but the velocity of how it went after it is pretty intense, man. I mean, you know.
It's pretty wild, 7,500, right? When we were just at 20,000 December 15th.
Yeah. So, you know, you could play the bounce here, I guess, but it looks to me like 4,000's game, 4,700.
You know, Paul, I know you watch these all the time. What is your take with, I mean, it's not just Bitcoin, right? I mean, across the board, you have every single one facing, you know, you have Ethereum at 9.10, down 16%, I'm showing. You got Ripple at 85 cents, down 14%. Usually there would be some rotation early on in these where if people were selling Bitcoin, they might be buying some of these other cryptos, but lately they've all been trading pretty close to together.
Yeah, they've all been getting hammered big time, and it's that's just the way it goes. I mean, they went up so fast, and here's the other side of the market. So
And
I think a lot of people are getting really scared right now and starting to dump, and that's probably why I think we're going to get the bounce here pretty soon.
Yeah, well, listen, so when you look at this, if you're watching, you know, the Tiger TV here, right? See on the right-hand side, and Tommy and I, we've been watching this a lot, and it's important to watch this a lot now because you're getting, we've had volatility in it, but now you're getting a lot of trades, man.
Look at that volume, right?
Yeah, so at the CBOE, you've done 7,500 contracts, but that's only one coin apiece. The CME, you've almost done 2,000, so that's almost 10,000 coins.
CME is 5 contracts per, you know, 5 Bitcoin per contract, yeah.
So there's real action there.
That's bigger than I've seen at any time, I think.
It is the biggest, that's right. And accelerated yesterday, accelerated today, and that's probably because it's been a two-way market out here today, you know?
Yes.
And what you get in this, like, meaning a two-way market, Paul, is that, and if you're looking at the CME, those are professional investors, period. Those are not the retail market, you know.
You got to buy 5 of them, so that's a big number.
Right. And so I suspect what they did, they're looking at that gap. They said, okay, we'll buy it. And guess what? They're going to be selling it, you know, at 9,000 or something. And then
I was going to say the same thing Paul had said. That's a lot of people probably as this goes to 8,000, you know, 7,500. Looking for a bounce potentially and seeing some volume in there. Sure, because, man, it would be so staggering just mentality-wise if we were below 5,000. It would be unfathomable when we were launching CME futures at 20,000 less than 6 weeks ago. So that's a head game for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it wasn't long ago. We were at 7,000, and it crashed. It seemed like a crash at that point. It came all the way down to about 5,500, 5,000 approximately, and it looked horrible. And then now when you look at that on the chart, it's just a little blip on the radar.
It is.
Because from there, we ran all the way up to the 20,000. So let me ask you this, Tom. Is there any way to tell if those traders in the CME are net short or net long, or is it just all you have is volume?
All as I have is volume here. That's going to be interesting. That's a good.
Dig into it. I wonder if
that's a
there is
good question, though. Yeah, that's a good question.
Because there was something showing. Remember that article, Tom, you sent me a while back about the biggest players in the market in terms of their open interest. So there is some type of statistics there in terms of open interest. So we'll have to dig into that because that's as we start reaching unforeseen levels to the short side, it will be interesting to see because, man, if you caught some of this short on the downside, just like people are buying for a pop, I think, at some point, if you were short at 10, 12, 13, let alone if you ever got fortunate enough to 15 or 20,000, at some point you have to take some of those profits, right?
Well, I think you do.
Absolutely.
The cool thing, Tom and Paul, is that you not only take them. I mean, when I'm on one side of the market, you not only take them, then you go long. I mean,
Right.
that puts real juice underneath the marketplace, because you say, okay, now a two-way market's a cool thing, because you close out one, bang, you're banging in the other like pretty quick, because you just figure that's it. You know what I mean?
Especially for Bitcoin, because I feel like that's something that is going to be around, and there's only going to be 22 million of them. So at some point, I feel like there's some value, much more so than some of the other ICOs or whatever it is that, there might be hundreds of billions of them, and they might go to zero. There is some value, and there should be some type of support at some level. But yeah, I mean, quite a run up to 20,000. Just going back, it doesn't take long. I mean, where were we? You're going back to November 11th. We're at 6,000.
Right.
So pretty remarkable.
And remember, folks. Okay.
Was it true that the Interactive Brokers was requiring 5 times the margin to go short? I believe I heard that on the show, and I might have read an article about that. But I think that he was really freaked out about the short side, and he was increasing the margin requirements for that.
There were big margins. I remember we discussed it. There were big margins.
Yeah, he didn't want anyone trading it. That's the bottom line. But guess what? He's a big broker dealer, but that didn't matter. Once the CME went up, man, bottom line, it's going to be traded.
Yeah, and they just wanted to make sure they were covered, which they put the type of margins that should pretty much make sure that they're covered, just because it's so much money at stake.
Right, and don't forget, folks, okay, so Sunday night, I mean, if you haven't opened up a Nadex account yet, go open a demo account, because what you're going to have here, well, listen, even all day today, you can open it right now and play with this, right today, because you have these weekly spreads. Now, these close out at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, and they open, I believe it's like 8 a.m. on Mondays that they open.
Yes, right.
But this one, for instance, opened, 6.2 to 16.2, so they had about 11,200.
Yeah.
Was the middle of that 10,000 spread. That's a way to short it, man, if you're looking for it, especially. It's a way to go long, too, but there's very few ways to short it. But either way, you have some defined risk, which is nice.
Right. And like right now, it's interesting right now. So, if you were buying it, your defined risk would be 265. 265. Yeah. That's the max.
So they have you in there. I'm seeing the market. It's 87.75 by 88.55. So the market's at 86.73. And because of that risk reward, your bid is $200 above current market, which isn't too dramatic when you look at your loss potential is capped to 6,200.
Right.
And it's not outlandish that we could be at 6,200 by the end of the day if something really crazy started happening.
Paul, stay right there for a second. Paul, Tommy, and myself, we're going to be coming right back, folks. Welcome back, folks. We are talking with our man Paul from Nevada. We're talking Bitcoin. We're talking cryptocurrencies. Paul, let me ask you. You got Ripple, you got Ethereum, we got Litecoin. What is the chatter that's out there? And the reason I'm asking is that we know on Twitter that cryptocurrency in general, even a couple weeks ago, that was the biggest handle out there, meaning that the chatter was so dramatic, right? Now, is the chatter like it's the end of the world out here right now?
Most of the people that I follow that are involved in the space, they call it HODL, hold on for dear life.
I see.
And
man,
that's what they're doing right now. Most of them believe that we are going higher, in that they believe in the blockchain, they believe in their coins, and they're holding no matter what. So
then it's not ready to buy.
You know what's scary? Just an anecdote. So I'm not sure if you were listening the day we talked about this, Paul. But, Tom, if you remember, I was talking about I was in the gym one evening, and I was sitting in the sauna, and 2 young guys, I say kids, they were in college, 21, maybe 22. And this was when Ripple was really having a tear. It was above $2. It might have even been approaching $3. And one of the guys was talking about taking out student loans to buy Ripple.
Wow.
And I couldn't help but roll my eyes. And what was amusing, and it's not an amusing story, but the amusing part was that his friend was saying, would you talk some sense into my buddy? One was the rational kid. The other kid was saying, man, it's just going up so much. I could, take out a loan. I pay it back in like 3 days, and then I got, a free position. And I was just being like, this is not good for what, and that, poor, Ripple, I mean, we're under 90 cents right now. And so I wonder if people in those spots, and unfortunately there's going to be many, if they are holding on for dear life, because that's a scary deal, man.
Yeah.
Something like Ripple, I mean, what are they? There's already 60 billion of them out there. There's going to be like 100 billion. Now, Ripple's going to have legs from, I see the financial capabilities, but that doesn't mean that the value of it needs to be $2, $5, $10 just because it's going to have value, which is the scary part of things.
That hold on for dear life is pretty a trip, man. Someone in the den is saying the same thing. Hey, Paul, as I'm looking at this, though, what may happen here is that it may be like, I like how Ripple is actually just set up. I get the chart up here, and man, Ripple, so it started off at 22 cents, let's say December 12th, right? Huge sign of strength on the 14th. He went from 45 to 88. And like, okay, it may be that a couple of these smaller ones will get Bitcoin to bounce itself. Because, if you're going to trade these, this is where, if you're stepping in at 89 and then you step in at 24, you're basically, in there at like 60 cents or something. So that's interesting, man. I want to pull up another one here. Let me see this. So
I think they're going to bounce here. I mean, they look like they're going to bounce to me, but I'll tell you what, just to dovetail on what Tommy was saying, I read an article that people were actually taking second mortgages on their homes to buy Bitcoin when it was up 18, 19,000 per coin. And I can only imagine
all of these stories, which is
right now.
All of these stories, which is a shame, were all around the same time too. That they really were that anecdote, because I remember those stories too, Paul. And it was all around the same time, which was the scariest thing because they all were up so much with no pullback at that level. I would have, if I ran into the same two kids for the first time today in the gym and they were saying I might do it at Ripple at 88 cents because it pulled back, I wouldn't be so aghast, you really wouldn't. Or if somebody was doing that with Bitcoin, it's still foolish to take out debt for cryptocurrencies, I believe. But you wouldn't be so aghast. But that was the scary part, is that it was all when it had just gone to the moon without any type of a blip. And they were everywhere, man.
And those stories, those stories tell me this thing's not over either. Yeah, that's
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, so
You got to give those kids the website and tell them to come take a seminar and learn.
Listen, I was telling them, man. I was telling them I deal with finance and trading, and you're young. You have no business taking out student debt, because as I said, what do you do when it goes to zero, man? You have student debt that you didn't even take, apply to your education, and now you have debt and you're not even working. I mean, people have a tendency in a lot of aspects of life to kind of plan for rosy situations. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it does not always go as you hope. And that is especially true when we talk about buying cryptocurrencies. I'd say anybody should realize that if you're in that game.
Oof, intense, man.
I know.
Intense. So, what are you going to do?
Over the weekend, go Patriots, and we'll see how everything shakes out come Monday morning, gentlemen.
Okay, brother. Thanks for the call, man. Have a great one. Have a safe one.
Bye-bye.